Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm Nick, and today I'm going to be giving my quick thoughts on the movie The Lesson. I've watched this movie probably 4 or 5 days ago now, and I let it sit for a while, and I'm ready to discuss it, guys. This was a first time watch for me. It's a little film from the UK released in 2015, starring Robert Hands, Evan Bendel, and Mikaela Prishalova. I really screwed up that name. But it's a really interesting film now. I'm going to get into spoilers here because it's one of those movies that's really hard to just kind of beat around the bush. Um, the basics, if you just want to know what the movie's about, it's about these really bad kids that screw with the wrong teacher, and the teacher teaches them a lesson they'll never forget. So, with that in mind, if that sounds interesting to you, check this one out. It is the Scream Factory edition. I got this in a horror pack a while back, and the only time I've ever heard of it was in that horror pack, and I got a comment from Red Rusty saying that it was a pretty good flick, so it got me interested. So I checked it out. So again, if you don't want spoilers, stop the video right now and go check out the movie for yourself. Then you can return. So in The Lesson, we follow this character named Finn. He's a teenager, and he's really hanging around with the wrong crowd. They're really just a bunch of dickheads, the friends that he's hanging around with, and he's sort of a dickhead himself. Now, when you have a character like this as your main character, a lot of times it doesn't work because there's no connection there. You can't feel bad for the guy if they're an asshole, right? But our main character Finn, he's a little bit more understandable. He's came from a broken home. His dad just left, and his mom unfortunately passed away, which he was really close to. And we see through flashbacks that he was once a really good kid, a really caring kid, happy. And we jump ahead to where he's 16. He just turned 16 in this film, and he's much different. He's confused. He's not properly loved. He lives with his brother, who is a bit of a dickhead himself, and he goes out with this foreign girl who is really nice to Finn, and the brother kind of gets jealous over him about that too. That's another thing, but just to say that this kid is just hanging around with the wrong crowd, and it's unfortunate because you really see his potential, but he's just not putting in any effort in to be a better person. He's, like I said, hanging around with the wrong crowd and doing bad things just like them. He's becoming one of them, and it's unfortunate. And one day they mess with the wrong teacher, him and his gang of friends, two other people he keeps hanging around with, and they mess with this teacher. They really piss him off. They put gum in his hair. They're not listening. They yell back at him and whatnot. And this teacher just has enough. And later in the movie, two of the teens walking at night get kidnapped by the teacher and brought back to a secluded place where he can torture them. Now, I feel like they didn't show enough of this teacher beforehand before he kidnapped them and that. We only got like one scene where it shows these kids being bad to him. And I understand the frustrations of being a teacher and having to deal with teens like this. It must be terrible. There must be some awful thoughts going through these teachers' heads like, oh, I would teach that kid a lesson. You know what I mean? And I get that, but it's just not really fulfilled in this film. We don't really get to see that play out. We get one scene where they're very bad to him, very mean to him, and he just gets pushed to his edge, I guess, and he kidnaps them, like I said, brings them back to a secluded place, ties them up, and that's where the lesson begins. Now, I feel like the whole first half hour or so of this film, where there's no horror, it's all about the drama and about Finn and his life, what he does throughout the day, where there's stealing and being bad, drinking, doing drugs, all that sort of thing, and then coming home to an angry brother and just really a bad family dynamic for him. He's really living in a broken home. And always having to lie to people saying, oh, my dad's just gone to work and that, which he very well could be, but in reality he abandoned them, right? So I feel like that whole drama section of the movie is fantastic. I could have watched a whole movie just on that and not needed the horror. But the idea of a teacher doing this to their students is very interesting, very obviously bizarre, but I was gonna say psychotic. It's very, very just insane. But it's not like it hasn't run through a lot of teachers' heads, I'm sure. But who would fulfill that messed up fantasy, right? But this teacher does, and when we get to that part where he's tying them down, that's where I feel like the movie starts to bog itself down, unfortunately. It's very clever because this teacher literally gives the main character 10 seconds to look up all these big fancy words that he keeps saying to him in his discussion. And if he doesn't get to him in time, he puts a nail through their hand. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's almost like some Saw stuff right there. A little bit of torture porn. But unfortunately, this happens for a long period of the movie and nothing changes. It keeps staying the same. If he gets the answer wrong, gets the nail in the hand. Eventually, they move up to a nail gun, but still, I feel like there wasn't enough variety there. And on top of that, the lesson that he's given, while it's clever, it's very boring. Like, it's a little too realistic. It feels like I'm in class listening to a really boring teacher explain something that may be interesting, but he's delivering it in the most uninteresting way. And it brought me back to my school years. Ugh, like 15 years ago when I was in class, just barely listening to the teacher, just basically staring at the chalkboard because it was going in one ear and out the other. And that's exactly what was happening in this film after about 5-10 minutes of this teacher just giving his lesson. Like I said, his lesson is clever, and I feel like if he was a better teacher, you would be more interested in the subjects that he's telling you about. And it's real interesting because he touches on are you born evil or are people molded that way? Or are some people born good? Like, it gives you all these interesting questions, which really leads back to our main character, Finn, because knowing that he's bad now, it's like, was he turned that way because of his life and the choices he made? Or was he born like that? But we really believe he's not born like that, showing all the flashbacks when he's a little kid hanging out with his mom and having such a wonderful time. But yeah, like I said, it's just so interesting that the teacher is touching on all these subjects um, that really hit home with Finn, right, in his life, personal life. His buddy that's tied up beside him is a real dickhead. He really has no redeemable qualities except for being a dickhead. And he gets exactly what he deserves. He gets like nails through the throat and that. And the practical effects look really cool. Like whether you're talking about nails through the hand, nails through the neck, nails in the head, hammer to the head. Like I said, there's not much variety here, but the practical effects are done really well. It's just unfortunate that it's just so damn boring when we get to the whole lesson scene, because it really feels like you're just in class yourself, which is not fun for the viewer. Some people are going to love this because it has that more elevated horror style or like art house horror style, because there's a lot of messages, deep messages interwoven here. There's a lot of connections you can make with all these lessons and Finn. There's a lot here to unravel if you want to. But like I said, the delivery itself was pretty damn boring. And I would have much preferred um, the no horror, just have this as a complete drama about this kid, because that was so interesting to me. And when we get to the part where he's kidnapped, it just bogs the movie down completely for at least like 40 minutes. It just feels like it almost comes to a dead stop, and it's unfortunate. And the teacher even touches on other things like Lord of the Flies, how like that book, and it's a movie too as well. But all these kids go on the island, right? And it's basically they basically start a war on each other, and cannibalism ensues, and all this because they were left unsupervised. And that's another thing, is like, should people be led or not? Because if they're not led, are they just going to run rampant and be crazy and be bad, almost like these kids in the movie, like the teens? So yeah, there's so many connections that can be made throughout this movie with its lessons and its characters. I found that real interesting. The brother's girlfriend in this movie, she lives with Finn and his brother, and she's older. She graduated 3-4 years beforehand, so she must be at least like 21 or so. And throughout this movie, she feels bad for Finn, and you actually feel like she's a really good person, because no one else is being really good to Finn throughout this movie. They're all being mean, but he's being mean back, right? But she actually draws attention to them, and they kind of have this unspoken love for each other, where just the way they look at each other and that. And she is not happy with his brother, because his brother is a dickhead, like I said, and Only thing is, her brother does kind of protect her from her mother, who was on drugs and such before, and that's how she ended up leaving her mom and ended up with the brother in the first place. So while the brother does have some redeemable qualities, he's mostly a dickhead as well. And in turn, the girl leaves her brother when she's pissed at him in one moment of the movie, and that's how she ends up finding Finn. She sees a car parked outside of this random abandoned place, and it had "you wanker" or something keyed in the side, which was a trademark of Finn and his friends. They were keying cars all the time. So she's like, Finn's missing. He must be around here. Let's check. And lucky enough, she did, because he was there. And she finds him, gets in a bit of trouble herself, and almost gets herself killed by this teacher. But in the end, they escape, save the day. And real interesting enough, she ends up getting with Finn, which we found out he just turned 16 in this film. And she's quite older than him. And we assume that they make love at the end. It's like leading up to that at the very end of the film, which is really odd to have statutory rape in this movie right at the end. Just throw that in there. It's not like it bothered me at all. It would be really weird if it was the other way around, a girl only being 15, 16, and a male that's much older. It's weird how society works, but that is just seems really wrong to me. But the other way around, it's like, okay, he was mature enough. I don't know why it works in that way, but it just does. As for the movie itself, like I said, I really loved the drama side of it. The whole build up to everything was awesome. They did a really good job with their characters, I feel. Except for the teacher, I feel like he was boring. That might have been intentional because teachers are kind of boring. But yeah, his whole lesson plan, I wish he would have had more variety. Like, he could have had different things for them to do, almost like Saw. Like different traps and that they had to beat and while they're doing their lessons. That would have been more interesting to me, but this is a fairly lower budget movie, so you can't expect too much. And in the end, I'm just glad how things turned out. Teacher got what he deserved, even though, like I said, this must be a fantasy for so many teachers out there in their sick little twisted minds, but I know they will never fulfill the most of them anyway. But yeah, this was an interesting movie. I would still recommend it, because maybe those lesson scenes you'll find way more interesting to me. Because like I said, these people that are in the art house films and that will really like that side of things. There's not a whole lot of like torture in that going on, so it might not be enough for the gore hounds, but there's still some there. And anybody who's into a good like drama about teens and a coming of age story, I feel like they'll really fall in love with parts of this film as well. That's what I fell in love with. And it was good enough to give it a recommendation. Like, I'll definitely recommend this to any horror fan or anybody who's into these more art house type films. Definitely worth a watch. I was not disappointed. There are a few flaws to it. Like I said, I wish the killer had a more better variety, and I wish the teacher had more backstory or a little bit more time with these kids so that we can really understand his motives. But all in all, it was pretty good, and I like this quote: "If you're going to learn, or you're going to learn, even if it kills you." It's a pretty bold statement for this type of movie, but I love it. Astonishingly bravura art house horror. You know when they're using words like bravura, I don't even know what that means. You know that they're art house themselves. Who said that? Oh, Fright Fest UK. So yeah, it was a really good English film, guys. Definitely check it out if you're interested, if it sounds interesting to you. And you can also check out my letterbox if you're interested in seeing all my reviews and rankings. I like post a lot of stuff on there, a lot of ratings, best of the year and stuff like that. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you have a good day, and thanks for watching.